Laurel, thank you. Good job. Julia Lecco. Let's see. You did a great job. Anna Paulina Luna. Anna, good. Nice to see you. Another quiet one, Nancy Mace.
Today I'm talking to a woman who is one of my favorite people in the world. She took on Disney. Nobody takes on Disney. ESPN. She is one of the country's most loved broadcasters, and if you're a sports fan, you absolutely know who she is because you watched her on ESPN for 16 years until they made the mistake of punishing her for just saying, I don't think I want to put that in my body, having a different opinion. Plenty of sports anchors would speak their minds freely, and as long as they were woke, not heard. She found a way to speak to the nation without them. We are going to have fascinating conversation, sports, faith, politics, on the mouse. Welcome to one of my favorite people in the world, veteran anchor, mother of three, host of the Sage Steele Show. Sage Steele.
I'm honored to be here.
You've never been on the show.
No,
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
How is that possible?
I'm gonna let the past be the past.
I know.
I'm not gonna try. No, it is an honor, and I told you this. I know you hear from everybody, but like you've inspired me more than you know. So thank you.
That's really
I mean it.
thank you. You've inspired me and so many other people with what you did. I mean, I don't want to dwell on this because everybody's told the story, but I think it's important to set the table. What you did in COVID and just standing up and even risking, I don't even know if you knew that, but risking a job of standing up and saying, and when you, if I'm not mistaken, that was your dream job for a long time, right?
It was.
I used to love Disney. I don't, Walt wouldn't recognize it anymore. They've just become this monstrous machine. How much, what did that feel like? I mean, when you, because all you did first, I remember, is you came out and you were like, I took the jab.
Yeah.
A little bit?
That's arguable, maybe. I did it on an off day on a podcast. Just, yes, I had no choice if I wanted to keep my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't appreciate that, to be forced to take a shot. And I had done enough homework just to know that there's a lot of questions about it. And so this is September of 2021.
Wow.
And
you were one of the first publicly, weren't you?
I guess so, but I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, I know.
I had talked to my agent at the time and who had talked to people at ESPN. And they were saying she really doesn't want to do it. And then I thought there were other treatments or vaccines that they were researching that might be somewhat different. Would you ask them to consider letting me wait 6 months? I just didn't feel comfortable. And my agent said, well, you could get a religious exemption. I'm like, but that's a lie. This isn't about religion for me. well, you could get a medical, but well, that's a lie. I was trying to do it the right way. I could have gotten a fake card. Well, that was a lie. And then I thought, well, then they really go after to make sure mine's right because they knew I was hesitant. So I just waited to the very last second and went and got the shot on the last possible day in order to be fully vaccinated by September 30th, 2021. And then went on a podcast, and all I said was, because I swear to you, this wasn't a prop. It was warm, and I had a short sleeve on, and the Band-Aid was on, and I come straight from the shot to the podcast in tears that I gave in.
Right.
And I didn't remember, and it was on Jay Cutler, the former quarterback, his brand new podcast, and he said, "What's the Band-Aid?" And I just was like, "Oops." And I said I took it, but I think this is where I got in trouble. I think it's sick and wrong for any company to force anyone to do something to their body that they don't want to. But
That is right.
correct.
It is right.
At that moment, I guess people were more
I know.
sensitive, and I said, but I complied because I need my job and I love my job. And I'm not surprised because it is a big global company, Disney, like many others, that were forcing us. I'm not surprised, but I'm upset. But here we are, and onward. And that was it.
And what happened? How fast did it take for you to get the phone call?
As soon as the podcast hit, there were a couple other things that made some headlines from the podcast that I apparently I wasn't allowed to say. Opinions based on my experiences as a woman in locker rooms for 25, 30 years, and as a biracial woman. Those topics around that got me in trouble. But it was day after it dropped, and it started off with, your what you said isn't going over well at headquarters. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I complied. You made me do this. I did it. I can have an opinion, but I followed the rules. And then it quickly went south, and I was given the choice to issue a formal apology, a statement, or I don't have a job, I'd be fired, and to be suspended, with pay, but to be suspended. And I just, for the context, for people who have through the years said, "Oh, were you paid? You took the shot?" Yeah, I did. I also, unfortunately, recently divorced, and I was the sole, still am the sole, provider, breadwinner for 3 kids. All of them are in college right now as we speak. So when I say I needed that job, I needed that job, and that's my responsibility to those kids. As much as I did break, and I still am disappointed in myself in some ways for giving in to the mandate. I had no choice.
For a different reason, I never forced anybody to take it. I think that it's your body, you know what I mean? But I almost took it because we were going over to the Middle East, and it was, remember the Afghan thing, and we were trying to save all these people, and I didn't have to be there, but I wanted to be there and leave some things. And we thought that the country wasn't going to let us in unless we got the jab.
Yeah.
And we all were sitting in a parking lot here in Dallas, waiting for the attorney to say yes, take it or not. And I wrestled with that. And I'm so glad I didn't. I mean, well, from what you know now, does it freak you out at all that you put that?
The only reason I can honestly say no is because the night before, I wasn't sure I was going to do it till I walked in this stupid little pharmacy, the grocery store in the middle of nowhere in Connecticut. The night before, I went to bed in tears because I was like, if I don't do this, how am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to give my husband his alimony checks? Real issues, real questions. And I went to bed and I just prayed for a sign. And when I woke up the next morning and I got in the shower, I was crying still because I'm like, what am I going to do? And I opened my eyes, and I haven't told this story often because it makes me cry. This was a house that I had done some renovations, but I still hadn't done the bathroom. There was some ugly brownish marble tile on the other side of the glass of the shower, and I saw it. And for the first time, after 3 years of living there, for the first time when I looked at that one spot, I saw the outline of an angel in the marble. I looked at that 10,000 times, and at that moment, I realized I asked for a sign, and I took that as you will be protected. So I'd like to believe that what went in me that day was water, I don't know, was not the vaccine. I also had to keep my job, had to get a booster in order to do my job and cover the masters, as I always had. And I knew I was risking it, but I felt I did have a choice, but in order to keep my job, I felt I had no choice, and I just had felt like, okay, God has taken care of me all this time, and that was a sign to me. That angel in the marble.
If you wouldn't have seen that, what decision?
I don't know. I
That
was
sounds
this
crazy to
close
people.
to walking away,
Yeah.
and just going back to court and say I can't pay him all this money. Like I don't know, but I know that. And this is maybe the coolest part, besides the angel and the ugly marble.
Mhm.
I went
It
into the
sounds like
pharmacy.
sounds like a bad Hallmark movie.
Hey,
Christmas
but
with
think about it.
the angel and the ugly marble.
Brown marble. Who has brown tile marble?
Right,
Whatever. When I sat down in the chair in the stupid grocery store pharmacy in the middle of nowhere, Connecticut, the sweet, she probably wasn't a nurse, probably like,
Yeah.
like me off the street,
Right.
putting the shot in. And she looked at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" Because my eyes were red. And I said, "No, I'm being forced to take this to keep my job. And I'm afraid." And this sweet woman looked at me, grabbed my hand, and said, "This is so wrong. And I'm so sorry."
Wow.
And then she put it in my arm.
Mm.
Something changed in me at that moment. Like something in me, anger, something changed. And I don't think I knew it at the time, but I felt it.
Tell me what that means. Anger. How do you
Like they pushed me too far.
Okay.
As it's going in,
So
as
courage.
it's too late. It fired me up in ways that I think I'm seeing today still. My mom and I are like, whoa. But something about her acknowledging how wrong it was too, this complete stranger, as she did it. She needed a job too, right? Like there's so many people who felt that it was wrong but were afraid to say it. But then she saw me crying but still doing it. I drove right home. I sped home because I was late because I sat in the parking lot debating whether I was going to do it for way too long. So I was late to get home to do Jay Cutler's podcast. So I believe that like I was fired up, that I was put into that position. And so when I said what I said, I was holding back, but I meant it when I said I thought it was sick and scary, because it is.
It changed so many people. I mean, I remember being on the air, coming home from Christmas vacation, seeing what was happening before anybody was really paying attention, seeing what was happening in China,
Mm-hmm.
and going on the air and saying, "This is disturbing. I don't know what it is yet, but this is disturbing. These signs aren't good." Then they started locking people up and everything else. And I remember saying on the air, don't fear the virus. Fear what comes and what people do because of the virus, the changes that will happen. But I said at the same time, but I can't imagine that we will ever do anything like that in America. We'd go crazy. Well, I got the crazy part right,
Yeah.
but I couldn't believe what we turned into, and still, in some ways, are.
Still are. It's sick and it is shocking, especially here. China, you can
Yeah.
kind of understand. I remember I was thinking about this the other day about, in order to go to work, in order to go anywhere, you had to go to the freaking drive-through and get a swab up
Yeah,
your
yeah,
nose to
yeah,
your
yeah.
brain, basically. The things that we said yes to,
Mm-hmm.
all of us said yes to. That's what's so scary. But I believe that was the beginning of us realizing.
I think it was. I mean, RFK, he changed. We didn't agree on any. He actually, one point I was on when I was hosting a show on CNN because I disagree on the cures for climate change. I can read it, temperature gauge,
Sure.
but I don't believe what they're planning on doing is a good thing. He actually said you're a traitor and you should be tried for treason. When I said to him, that's the only thing in the Constitution that's clearly spelled out. That's the death penalty. And he said, yes. Right? So I've never had a lot in common with RFK.
Yeah.
He came on the show and I said, you remember that time? He said, oh, yeah. And he said, COVID changed me. He said,
Really?
I never thought, he said, I was too flippant and I just never thought we would ever become the people
Yeah.
like that. And he said, when I saw COVID and what we were doing, I couldn't believe it. And I want nothing to do with it. I mean, that's a massive change.
Especially for Kennedy,
Yes.
for RFK,
Right.
that he was able to say stuff like that and basically the death penalty. Yeah. So
If you agree, but you did. It wasn't just COVID. Finish what happened in the rest of that interview. You got in trouble for.
well, the first in chronological order, the first thing was women in sports and just talking about how much it had evolved through the years. I graduated from college in 1995, and so I was always the only woman in the locker room, always. And then there were younger women coming along who I would, I didn't have a female role model or someone to take me under their wing in the locker rooms and to tell you how to kind of manage the whole thing or dealing with all the coaches and traveling and what that looks like. And so I tried to do that with women along the way. And I just saw how more and more women would come in the locker room, but then I'd look and I'm like, what is she wearing and why? So I said, that's
What
one
does
thing
that
that's been
mean?
disappointing is because when women, not all, oh my gosh, of course, I think most are certainly very professional, but when you go into a locker room or any business area, conference room, whatever, it does matter what we're wearing as men too, but certainly as women. And so when you go into those spaces and you're hanging out and stuff showing and you're more worried about like how sexy you look and how good you look, that takes away from your credibility and all the women who've come ahead of you. So I said, women, we are smart. I have 2 daughters that are in college. We talk about those a lot. Women are so smart. Let's not play dumb. Like, well, I felt uncomfortable because you know what? If you're wearing that, I'm gonna look at you. And I like men, but like at the end of the day, we know what we're wearing. I'm just saying, be professional as you would anywhere else. Not looking like you're going to a nightclub. So that turned into Sage Steele believes women who dress
Are asking
that way,
for
deserve to be raped. That's what headlines were.
Jeez.
That was nothing compared to. Jay asked me about being biracial and why it's so important to me. If I'm asked to say yes, biracial, not just black.
So in other words, they wanted you to be more black.
Mhm.
Oh.
Mhm.
We live in a world that is constantly changing in ways we don't see coming. But one thing that will always remain the same is the need to be ready. Some emergency preparedness vitals include emergency contacts, plan for evacuation routes, meeting places for your family, get out of town bag, a go bag with important documents, flashlights, batteries, and non-perishable food. And of course, you should consider having a Jace case as part of that equipment as well. I can't recommend these highly enough. If you're the type of person that wants to be prepared if disaster strikes, or you're going on vacation and your kid gets sick, you don't want to have to go find a CVS or whatever, wherever you are in the middle of the night, you're going to want the Jace case. Jace case, its personalized emergency kit, contains the essential antibiotics and medications that treat most common and deadly bacterial infections. It provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. They even have ivermectin as an add-on if you want it. The horse? I'm not a horse. Go to jace.com, enter their giveaway, and also purchase your own case. Enter the promo code Beck at checkout for a discount on your order. It's Jace, JASE.com. The promo code is Beck.
I told the story of what happened when I was on The View in 2014 with Barbara Walters and Whoopi and Sherry Shepherd and Jenny McCarthy. That was the cast at the time. And they said, hey, can we talk about you being biracial and how important it is to you? I was like, sure. So we get on there and it's live. And Barbara Walters asked me, about my background. And then she said, so why don't you just identify as Black? And I said, well, because I'm not. I mean, I'm both. At that time, ironically, I found out later when I saw the tape behind me, they put up a picture of my family, my Black dad, my white mom, and my two brothers. And hi, I'm both. I'm actually 50% of each. And I'm so proud of all of me, right? Isn't that diversity? Isn't that what we want and promote in this country? So she said, well, 2014, well, the president says he's Black and he's biracial too. And she goes, what do you do when you fill out the census? And I was like, I don't know. I check both or all of them or not. I don't care, but I'm not going to exclude one. And I said about Obama, I said, well, congratulations to the president. I think it's fascinating that he was raised by his white mother and his white grandmother, and his Black father, unfortunately, was nowhere to be found. He wrote a book about it. This is not breaking news. Couldn't say it anytime, right? But I said, you do you, identify how you want. I'm going to do me. And I'm pretty sure that my white mom was there the day I was born. And I'm so proud of all of me. Why is that bad? So you're telling me I'm not enough of this, but tomorrow you're going to say I'm not enough of this. Like, I can't keep up. This is me. I feel like I represent so much of America where we're mixed race and it's beautiful. So it was actually not a big thing then in 2021 when I repeated the exact story on this podcast. It was Sage Steele hates Black people and the sellout, all of the language that I don't like to repeat. So that was the other big thing. And that, along with the Disney comment, is what got me shut down and canceled. And the ironic thing is when they pulled me off the air and said, you must issue this statement or you're out of a job, is what they told my agent, apparently, not directly to my face. I was sicker than I've ever been in my life with COVID. After, of course, getting the shot that was supposed to prevent me. So I'm in bed, unable to breathe at times. Like it got me hard, alone. My kids were with their father for 8 days. I was alone. I'd never been in a darker place in my life. Being canceled by every person I thought was a friend, every network, every peer, everything, and all Black people. Not all, of course.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of my end at ESPN, which was also the beginning of a beautiful new beginning. Like all of it. But I look back and I still, I swear to you, I would not change a thing. And there will always be pain from that because the only reason I stood up and sued later is because ESPN and Disney allowed all of my peers who leaned to the left, who hated Trump, who loved Obama and loved everybody, they could say whatever they wanted on ESPN platforms, live on an NBA show to talk about Roe versus Wade being overturned instead of talking about basketball, or the Don't Say Gay bill on a football, basketball show. So my point is just be consistent. You cannot allow all of them to say whatever on ESPN platforms, nothing to do with sports. Well, I'm on a podcast on an off day talking about my experience as a biracial woman, my experience with taking this shot and complying with your rules.
Especially
Just
when
be
I can't
consistent.
comment on your experience because I'm a white cisgendered man and I can't even relate to I can't comment on it. They'll shut me down.
No
I
way.
can't have an opinion on me.
Can't.
But then you, biracial, you should not have a biracial. I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, we've gone insane, and I mean, I've been on The View. Oof,
Yeah.
nasty. But I was talking to Jay Leno this weekend, and he calls me up. He's like, "I got insane. I don't understand." And he said, "Glenn, I'm out." He said, "I take my fire truck. He's got an old fire truck. Take my fire truck out to the fires." He said, "Because these firemen are eating and they're working 15, 18 hours a day." And he said, "They need food and they're getting box lunches." And he said, "I just thought I have one hot meal a day."
Yeah.
He said, "So I bring my fire truck up and I bring all these up." He said, Anderson Cooper comes up to me and says, what are you doing here, Jake? And he said, these guys are eating, sandwiches, and I think one hot meal a day would be good, so I'm bringing them hot meal. He said, that was twisted into? He said that was twisted into Jay Leno takes on America's box lunches.
What?
He's like, what? He's like, we have lost our minds.
So stupid.
It's
So
crazy.
it's embarrassing and it is pathetic.
It is.
But that is why we're here today.
Yeah.
That is why Donald Trump is back in office, because they pushed us too far. And I actually believe it took every bit of what has happened
It did.
leading up to 2020, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, all of the things, how the Democrats chose to run Kamala's campaign, how they chose to put her there in the first place, for people to get to the brink of disaster before realizing.
I don't think
well-
everybody realizes that, though.
No, I know. I think a lot more do.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm so obviously, or else we wouldn't be here. Not many are willing to say it out loud, maybe.
I think
Yeah,
we were
it's still
actually
crazy.
blessed by the Lord that he didn't win in 2020,
Totally agree.
right?
Totally agree, because it would have just been, oh my God, 4 more years of this crazy person.
Right.
Instead of going, oh, he's not that bad, because look what these people did,
Right.
not just allowed to happen, did to us. And it was intentional. And they didn't think that we would smarten up in time. Why would they think that? Look at how we lined up and went and got that shot just like I did. So why would they think that we would, be like, oh. Why would they think that after what they did to the election in 2020? I have always been an election denier. I don't care. You can tell me what you want. I've seen enough videos. I'm not an idiot. And I'm choosing to see what's in front of me instead of ignoring it, or at least, choosing to say it. It took every bit of this crap for us to get to where we are today, and to get him back in office, and a better version as a president, as a human being.
I think him, first of all, I think it hardened him. I think when 2020 happened, he was like, and I talked to him right after the election, and I said, Mr. President, I don't have any proof, but you'll never convince me that that was fair. But I don't have any proof.
That what was there?
The election, 2020.
Yeah.
I said, but, I'm sorry for everything that you've gone through. And he just really had a hard time with that. However, in time, I think he just started to catalog, okay, what happened here? He had no time to think. What happened? What didn't I know? You notice he doesn't have his family as the only people around him this time.
Yeah.
He knows now who I can trust. He had no one he could trust. So he started cataloging, and then when they started coming after him and his family, the first time I talked to him, when they first went after his children, I think it was his son, or maybe it was Ivana, and she said, or he said to me, they went after my effing children. And I saw real anger from him for the first time. However, he then had to go through court and everything else. And by the time he gets up to the assassination attempt, he's not that way anymore. He's not that way. And then the assassination attempt happened. And I think that was a God moment. And it humbled him. Instead of becoming angry, he just became even more determined.
Yeah.
And look at him now. He's back to the Donald Trump I knew in 2008 or 10, or you know what I mean? That wasn't running for president. He was comfortable in his skin. He knew the game. He knew what he was playing. It was that 4-year period that I think just took him absolutely by surprise.
Yeah.
And look at him now.
I didn't know or think, of course I didn't know him or anyone around him at that time, but I didn't think he was going to run again. I thought, you know what, like this is
Why
a
would
sad
you?
ending, but what benefit is it?
Mhm.
You certainly aren't going to have more money in your pocket after he had
Mhm.
less, as we
Yeah,
know. Nobody
much.
has come out with less except
No.
Donald Trump, right? But I do think that he had to go through it. He's more humble, despite what people want to think, because number one, the assassination attempt, and I feel his belief in God. He speaks about it much more than he ever has,
In a real way.
beautifully, like very genuine. And I also think that from a business perspective almost, I mean, we all have to take a step back sometimes to be our best selves. And during that time when he was tipped off, and rightfully so, because of what happened in 2020, and then of course coming after him, you have more time to assess and how can I be better. And I loved when he went on Joe Rogan and talked about what he did wrong and how he admitted that he should have vetted people better and not hung on because he's loyal and he didn't have the right people. To admit that is incredible.
Remember when Barack Obama was asked, what did you do wrong? And he said, nothing.
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 How about Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
What would you change? Nothing. Like, if you just show a little bit of humanity, what would I do differently? I believe people see that and go, oh, you know what else it is? It's really good leadership.
Yeah.
When you can own your crap. And then as an employee, I said in 30 years in the industry, I've had maybe enough true leaders on one hand. People have the title, but they don't know how to lead.
Correct.
When he did that, to me, it was a massive thing for me to see as I look up to our commander-in-chief, him and some others, and he acknowledged this is where I can do better, and now we've seen it. And I also think that 48 hours after he was shot, to be there in Milwaukee, I guess it was, and the shots that they took of him, shouldn't use that word, the close-ups of him sitting there while his 17-year-old granddaughter had the courage to get on stage and speak about her grandfather. You saw the tears in his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
We are seeing the human side of Donald Trump.
We saw
It's
it.
beautiful.
We saw it that week, unlike I've ever seen it before in anyone else. You could watch it happen in real time. From the minute he was, now let me show you this, to the ground,
Yes.
to the fight, to the next day, you could see the hesitance in Milwaukee as he's walking. Remember he walked out of that and then
Yeah, I
he
have
stopped.
chills.
I do too. He stopped for a minute and you were like, he's not the same man. Not the same man.
He was not like, look at me.
Yes.
He was absorbing it,
And he was I think,
present.
yeah, he was also it for the first time he showed it because he actually really likes people, but you don't see that. You know what I mean? He's got such a
Yeah.
but you could see how much the people meant to him. When he stood up, he told me, I saw that no one had run. And they were, I had a tear up saying this, and they didn't run. They were with me. That's when he cemented his relationship. I'm never walking away from these people. And he always said to me that it was about the people that he had promised, not the bigwigs, the people that came to his rallies that he promised he would fix. That moment for him, I think he realized they're the ones I can trust.
Yeah.
And I will fight for him. And then for him to come out and he had that applause, you could see him. He was grateful.
He was.
Grateful.
People don't want to acknowledge his human side. It's easier not to. It's easier to hate somebody when you only see the one thing. I had never met him until a few months ago, you know, during the election, the campaign. And, you know, he's no different from us in the way that he wants to be liked, you know? Maybe it's not everything for him, obviously not, or else he would have never done this, certainly not again.
Or he would have just acquiesced.
Just
I
like
just-
everybody else.
Yeah, just don't say those things.
Yes, just like everybody else. And I love that about him. I love actually seeing that part because that means, oh, we have a little something more in common.
Yeah.
I'm getting over that disease of being a pleaser and like trying to make people like me. I give up. Like
I came from an alcoholic family, and that was my role. I was the little clown. I was the little, hey, everything's okay, everybody. And I still fight that. I still
you
fight
do.
that. Yeah, not strangely, not on the air.
Mm.
I got into radio when I was 13, and so I've told everything to this that I've never told to people. I mean, my first wife, I came home one day after I talked about my mom's suicide. And it was a really traumatic moment for me. And I got home and she said, your mother killed herself? I don't, this is different for me.
Your
So
wife didn't know.
she didn't know. I didn't even think about it at the time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because your wife was listening.
She was
You
listening
said
and she
it.
was like, what, wait, what? And it's weird. So I don't have a problem saying hard things to it, but I have a hard time in real life. I don't like confrontation. It's the alcoholic, it's the alcoholic. I don't like confrontation, you know. I was talking about that today about Trump and his tariffs.
Yeah.
I think people, they want America first. They want to do the right thing. They want the end of the war in the Ukraine. But the minute a leader stands up and says, knock it off and sit down, and you too, everybody gets uncomfortable. Well, let's not do that. That could cause, it's Reagan saying, those guys, that's an evil empire.
Yes,
You have to change the game.
you have to.
And you did that.
Oh,
You
gosh,
did. You
that's a
changed
big
the game.
turn there.
No, but you did.
I don't know. I don't know if I did, and it certainly wasn't my goal.
I know, but you did. And I think you still are. Women's sports. I mean, what's been happening with women's sports? And they're all saying, I'm doing it to protect women. And I honestly, I don't even understand the mathematics that gets you there.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid that this is even a conversation. And the hypocrisy in it is just so thick. At
Do you
ESPN.
think anyone is sincere in that?
Well, in saying that,
Men can be women and women can be men, and it's totally cool. And I don't.
I think that yes, but they're part of the mentally ill group,
Okay.
and that group is growing.
Yeah.
Sadly.
It
But
is.
there's no other way, because these are the same people that said follow the science, and then I'm
Right.
anti-science.
Right.
I was
And
with,
even today, because you speak out, and say, hey, this obviously, the record is clear on the science that just happened.
yes,
And they still will say that was science
Correct.
and you were wrong.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I wanted to kill everybody around me by
Right.
not being vaccinated.
Right.
Exactly. I do think people have mental issues and or just absolutely refuse to acknowledge something that might make them look like they're more in the middle on something, which again, there's really things that are black and white, and this is, right? I think the reason, one of the reasons I keep speaking up, number one, yes, because of these young women, but also when I was at ESPN, I was part of ESPN W, which I love, W for women, and it was an annual conference retreat summit every year, I think starting in 2010, and I was the original for 11 straight years, 10 or 11 straight years, until that year in 2021 when I spoke up. And it's all the strongest women and athletes and executives from all different corporations, whether it's Lululemon or Nike, like Gatorade, all over the place. And the silence that we continue to hear, you can't hear it because they're silent, is mind-boggling and disgusting to me. All these women who stand up there and preach pro-women, pro-this, pro-that. You don't do enough highlights on us. You don't do enough this and that, and salaries. And now you're silent at the most obvious time. Title IX is something we always talk about. Billie Jean King came to the conference several times. I mean, she was right there in the middle of it. I was born in 1972. That's the beginning of Title IX. And now they're willing to take this and allow it, and they're actually encouraging it some and are part of it. I've said from day one with this, if we just as women's sportscasters came together and said, okay, there is room for everyone and we will figure this out, because this is not about excluding anyone transgender. But if we just stood up, this would have ended. But instead, there's been 1.5 people in the sports industry, 2 people, me and my friend Samantha Ponder, who also got fired from ESPN last fall because she's a conservative. And then we're silenced because of it and canceled and threatened, and you're losing a door because we're standing up for women. It's no different than COVID to me. They want to control. They're making money from this stuff, and if we continue to stay quiet, there is blood on our hands, and I firmly believe that.
Oh, you ever read, I'm trying to remember who wrote this. Back in the 50s, it was a book, I think it's called Ordinary Men. And it was done by a researcher. Some of the worst Nazis were the best police officers of Poland. Okay?
Okay.
They were fair, they were decent, they were honorable, and they quickly became the worst of the Nazis. Okay? And so this researcher went back and tried to figure out what the hell happened, because it happened that fast.
So fast.
And I'm doing horrible injustice to her theory, but it's absolutely right. One person said, "Do it,
Yeah.
or you're fired. You're out." And they did it, and then it just was a Rubicon. They just crossed it, and then they just had to continue to reinforce that they were on the right side.
Yeah.
And it just got worse and worse and worse, and they could no longer see it. Once they crossed the river, once they did that, it was over. And I feel like that's what we're doing again. I mean, thank God, not to that degree, but people have just crossed the river. They've burned their families, burned people. They stood for things that no person in their right mind today
Yeah.
would still be backing up, but they can't go back. They feel like they can't go back.
And I understand the fear in many ways. I have noticed though lately with all of these topics, political, cultural, whatever. I think this is something I need to work on. I have no more patience for people who live in fear. I don't. And I'm not saying that from a me, whatever perspective, but I think it comes from some personal stuff too, where when you live in fear, I mean, I'll just say I'm divorced, I was married for 20 years and I wouldn't change a thing. And I love
You
what
ever
we
talk-
had, and I have my 3 kids, and I'm grateful that
I was shocked when you and I met
at Amfest.
at Amfest. It's a Charlie Kirk's thing, and I've known about you, but we've never met. Have we ever
Yeah.
talked before?
No.
And I was so immediately impressed with your strength and the sense of you just know. There's successful people are either total frauds or they just know who they are, and that's why they're successful.
Yeah.
And I just was overwhelmed by that. And then you started talking to me and putting little breadcrumbs out about you were afraid in a relationship. You're afraid, and it doesn't
Equate, yeah.
it doesn't work. Have you ever talked about it? Are you willing to talk about that? What was that? What happened?
In my marriage?
Yeah, with you being
Oh.
afraid. How did that happen? Because you don't seem like a woman who's afraid.
Yeah, I'm not anymore.
But why were you?
It's
What
because,
happened?
very well intended, I think. Only girl, first child. I just, the pleaser in me.
Mm.
I wanted to make sure everybody around me was okay and happy. And I come from an incredible, my parents, I'm 52, my parents were married 54 years this year, as an interracial couple that got married in
Really?
1971,
Wow.
where my mom's family, or parents, not family, but parents disowned her for marrying a black man. And all that they've been through, they are my why, my strength, my everything, along with my kids. And not but I was that girl, and I wanted to please the teachers and please my coaches and please everybody and make sure everybody's good. And I married my first boyfriend, met him in college. I was 20, and got married at 26, almost 27, and divorced at 47. So that's all I knew my whole adult life, And it was again, I say this, I wouldn't change anything, but he was a stay-at-home dad, and it was great for many years as my career, continued to, and I had this, I had guilt. I had guilt for not being home as much as I wanted to be. I had guilt for, okay, having been too successful at some point, which how did that make my husband feel? And he was going to go back to work when the baby got into first grade and never did, and that's why we're here today, etc.
But what were you
But
afraid
I was
of?
afraid of everything. I was afraid of, I don't know. When I say everything, I can't even think of how to summarize it because I was afraid that if I wasn't home enough, then I wouldn't be a good mother. And my friends who all stayed home were judging me. I was afraid that if I was too successful, then it would make my husband feel smaller because he's the man and I'm very, very, very traditional. And I didn't, the whole role reversal I didn't like anyway, but I was doing well, so it's the right thing for the family. So I made myself smaller, oh my gosh, in every way to try to make sure everybody around me didn't feel like I thought I was all that on TV and all the things. And then I was afraid to address the issues because I'm Catholic and we don't get divorced. You don't do that. I was afraid of the judgment. I was afraid God would be mad at me. The fear was everywhere. And then you're not enough racially, right? Because I'm not white, I'm not black. And so then you have to choose. And if I say this, then I'll be too white. If I say this, then I'll be too black. And then I'm different. I'm not black enough because I have white hair that it went everywhere. And so then, okay, I'm doing well and I was good at my job and I worked my butt off. And everybody was happy. And then I had these things were happening in society where I'm like, that's wrong. That's not okay. But if I say something, then I'll be too far over here. And then I won't be liked by the left and people who look like me because so you just stay silent. And then I would speak up.
Just make my head
And
hurt just
I
thinking
know.
about it.
Do you see why? This is why I'm talking
Yeah.
about why my hair's curly because it's just everything. But it was smarter to stay quiet, Glenn. So much smarter. From every perspective, certainly for work, financially. I mean, what I've lost financially is insane. But God, it feels good to be true to myself in every way now. And to realize that if I'm leading with my heart, if I'm doing it in what I believe is the right way, leading with kindness, but strength as well, man, if you don't like me, that's kind of on you because I'm actually a really nice person and loyal and supportive. If you don't like me because of my opinion, that's on you. It just took half a century to get there, and that's really annoying. But now, because of all the people I was around, including my leaders and bosses and teammates and coworkers and peers, and people in my personal life, which I've made kind of obvious here, when you live in fear, I can't be around you because I need someone to continue to uplift me as well. Let's make a team. We're doing this together. And I shudder at the thought of what had happened, what my life would look like if I had continued to live in that fear, whether it be with my opinions, standing up about what I thought was wrong with forcing someone to put a shot in their body that's an experimental, unproven shot, or even if I had lived in fear of what everyone would think of me for making the decision to end my marriage and where I would be today. Even though I have no idea what tomorrow is, I don't know what my professional life is going to turn out to be. I don't know if my little show is going to work. I don't know if I'm going to get married again. I don't know if my kids are going to hate me or like me tomorrow. It depends on how much I give them for spring break. Like, I don't know, but I'm okay with it. And it's just, I'm so grateful that God has allowed, and it's all God, has allowed me to, say trust. That day in the shower, when I saw the angel in the ugly brown marble, I feel like it was a turning point, and I have trusted with every aspect of my life, and the fear has gone away. What a blessing to have been canceled 150 times, to have been embarrassed intentionally by my company, intentionally. What a blessing to have lost all the money that was right there on the table for me to take. What a blessing for some family members to be like, she's a nut job, keep her away. What a blessing to have been called a sellout, other names I won't say. People I thought were friends to go away and say, yeah, I'll be friends with her, but don't put it on Instagram. Don't show anybody that I'm having lunch with her. I swear to you, I'm so grateful for every moment because God has been there every step. He always was. I just wasn't willing to see it. Sorry, that was
No,
not
that was-
soundbite length. I'm very sorry.
No, no.
No more fear. No more.
I think that's the most common. I think that's the most human thing that we all have in common is fear. I know I'm an alcoholic, but when I was a practicing alcoholic, it all came from the fear of I don't want people to find out about this or who I am, or I'm not sure I am any good. I know all of this crap. And we're all just living in fear. And when we admit it,
Yeah.
and when we let others see it,
Yeah.
two things happen, I think. At least it did in my life. One, you find real people.
Yeah.
You find people are coming up to you and going, I can't believe you did that, but
Yeah.
thank you. Right?
Mhm.
And can we get some feedback? And,
Sorry.
and the other thing is you become the most powerful person. Everybody is afraid of you. And they're afraid of you because they can't manipulate you. You should be, and I think you probably are, the most predictable person in anyone's life. Because you're so clear on what's true and you're not afraid to walk away. That terrifies people.
It does.
It's wonderful, isn't it? I mean, not to terrifying them, but it's wonderful.
It is, and I never knew. And every time I've shared a little bit, probably started in like 2018, after the first time I got canceled in 2017. Every time I shared something, thank you. She did a great job on my makeup today too. Goodness gracious. You'll let me know if it sticks to my
Yeah,
face.
I know.
Every single time I've opened up about anything personally, which I was afraid to, you try to protect your kids, try to
Mhm.
protect everything. I still try to, believe it or not. Professionally about the decision to stand up and sue the employer that I loved. Every time I have received such a gift and one response from somebody on social media, on an email, at an airport, in a women's restroom, at a restaurant. The number of people now who come up to me, grown men in tears, thanking me because they're afraid to say something about women's sports and keeping men out of them for their daughters. It has overwhelmed me, and that's what I'm trying to do on my little show as well. It's like every time we open up, not only are we helping ourselves, we're helping others. And they say, oh my gosh, this person that looks like they have it all together and on TV and famous and money and all that, they're going through that too. So I now believe that, like, it is what it is. I don't even care. Think I'm a loser because I cry too much. But
You're with me.
I do. Exactly. But like, we are helping others just by being true to ourselves.
Yeah, no.
And that is a gift. And I know that there's some strength in that. But to me, the credit has to go back to my faith.
I wouldn't have done it without faith.
No way. And what you have chosen to overcome and address, whether it's right here
Mm-hmm.
or in any other way, that's the win. And I actually think that that's how we all heal and recover as a society as we stop trying to be so damn perfect and keep it all together and be so like, no, I mean, do you see this hair? Like, there are so many imperfections here that now I just embrace them.
Stop talking about your beautiful haircut.
Okay.
Look at mine. Look at mine, then look at yours.
Guess
Stop.
Actually, mine is the same color as yours. Believe me.
No.
100%. I'll show you later. The
Wow.
roots are back here. But I'm so great. This is what I said to my kids. Whether it be speaking up, standing up for yourself, or in relationships, please don't waste my pain. Please take my crap and use it and be better and smarter and wiser and fearless. And I'm so glad. And Glenn, the day before my lawsuit dropped in April of 2022, I spoke to each of my kids separately to say, this is what's happening tomorrow. One was in college and then two were in high school. And I just want you to know that this is probably going to be ugly. I don't want you to defend me. This is about free speech. And
You
that's
and I
why
have
I'm
so
doing
much in
this.
common. I had the same conversation
When
with
you're
my
kids, oh my God, like, I just didn't want them to feel the need to say it to defend me, because it does get open. Teachers and coaches and other parents would say things to my kids, and I was like, tell them to talk to your mother. And that's when the ugly stage will come out, because you touch my kid, I will cut you, I will hurt you, and I'll go to prison for you. But I said, don't defend me, just remind people that everybody has a right to their own opinion and diversity of thought. That's all you have to say. And I said, but I'm sorry for what is to come, because I know it's going to be ugly, but just know I cannot be quiet anymore, and I'm so sorry, but I love you. And do you know, each one received it differently. My son, who's in the middle, I would say between my two crazy daughters, my saint son, who's like, oh boy, he's going to be the best partner someday. My son stopped what he was doing, and he looked at me, and he said, Mom, it's about time you stood up for yourself. He was 17. I thought I was protecting my kids this whole time by staying quiet. And in the meantime, what did they see? They saw me being quiet and afraid and not true to myself and small. And so I'm teaching that. We're teaching our kids to be strong and to do all those things, but what example are we showing them? The opposite. Shame on me. So I knew at that moment that even if Disney won, hello, David versus Goliath, they could bleed me dry in 5 minutes.
One thing they do well is litigate.
Very good, very well. Even if they won, I actually just won, because my kid, they saw me saying enough. I knew my career there was going to be over. When you sue your company, it's over. And by the way, I was still on air for 16 months after that lawsuit dropped. So I would sue them while on their screen every single day. And it was so scary every day to walk in there and do those live shows. But my kids saw their mom supporting them, supporting everybody, and fighting. And so I did know at that point that I'm here for more on this earth, to be their mama, even when I drive them crazy, which is a lot, and to use my voice. I knew I was going to ESPN. I didn't know what was next, but to help others who also lived in fear. And I know now that that's why God has me here.
I'm going to give you a list of people, and you tell me what they have in common. Andre Botticelli, Steph Curry, Justin Bieber, and Tim Tebow. All of their moms were encouraged to end their pregnancies. That's incredible. Now think of the tens of millions that we have snuffed out as a society. My gosh, how many greats did we lose? When a woman faces an unplanned pregnancy, she's often pressured to end her child's life. Most moms do not want to do this, but she wants to make the right choice. Nobody is around helping her. Society is saying that's not really a life. But this is where the Ministry of Preborn steps in. Preborn and their network of clinics offer compassionate, loving care to moms, and they support them in their hour of need and their years in need, honestly. They help them, first thing, choose life by introducing a free ultrasound. Once mom hears the child's heartbeat, she's twice as likely to choose life. Then what's standing in your way? A lot of it is just really basic things. And that's why they are there for 2 years after mom. Will you join forces with me in preborn? One ultrasound is $28. $140 helps rescue 5 babies. When you donate monthly, you're going to receive stories and pictures of the lives you helped save. Please dial pound 250, say the keyword baby, pound 250 keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/Glenn. We go back to 1971. Parents. Right over here in the dark, that's the Archie Bunker set. That's all the family.
I love the music.
That was the first one to really deal with interracial. I mean, 1971, your parents were ahead, way ahead.
Mhm.
Your dad was, if I'm not mistaken, the first black varsity football player, right, in at West Point.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to balance this. That wasn't fear. That was not fear. How did you, how did they influence you, or how did you miss that epic stance from them without fear? Gosh, I don't mean to make you.
No, I love this.
Yeah.
How did I? Because they put
You
me
were
there, but
raised.
then
You're just talking about. I taught my children. I think I can teach my children, and they can learn from my example. But I don't think they actually learn until they face their fire.
yes.
You know what I mean? So is that the same with you? Because your parents faced fire. You had to, as a young kid, well, white mom, black dad. You had to be the odd person out in school. How did you? What happened?
What happened was the environment in which I grew up was beautiful. As an Army kid, military, it was a safe space. There was a lot of kids who looked like me. There were so many interracial marriages in the military, if you think about it. And everywhere you went in the world, and I lived in 4 countries by the time I was 11 years old. Everywhere you went, there were kids who knew what it was like to move and to start over and to. Now I have to find new friends on the playground, and then on your sports teams, etc. And so it was the most diverse upbringing because racially and all that, but it was a bubble because we all took care of each other there. And so then, my senior year of high school, the Army moved us from Fort Carson, Colorado Springs, to Fort Benjamin Harrison outside of Indianapolis. And it was my senior year of high school. And there was no school. It's a small Army post, which is now a state park. It's no longer. But the downsizing of the military in the 90s, it changed. And so I went to a public school there in a non-military town. And of 1,800 students at Carmel High School, I was the only black student. I say biracial, of course, but the only one. And so that was my first time feeling different, was as a senior in high school. Not all those years leading up to it. And so I've been protected. And also
Is that a
protected.
good thing or a bad thing?
Well, in hindsight,
Yeah.
it was my first experience with racism.
Did you know that it was out there,
No.
but just not?
No, I mean, yes, I guess, but there was no internet. It was a different
Yeah.
world.
I grew up in a time. I grew up in Seattle, and I think there were like 4 black people at the time. So I couldn't relate to the South. I couldn't
Yeah.
relate to what it just seemed like a distant kind of,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I moved back east and I start seeing, there's a real split here. You know what I mean? First time I went south, and I felt like I remember stopping for gas, and I felt like I was in Deliverance. And I'm filling up gas, and this guy says, "Those are Yankee plates." And I'm like, "What are your God? They're going to eat me?" And I think they have slaves. I don't know what's happening here. I mean, it was just, different world. So you kind of had the same.
Yeah, because I was so protected with the diversity.
Yes,
It was beautiful. It was picked in my mind. And then one day I was walking to class and was surrounded by a group of boys one of them I thought was my friend, and N-word, go back to Africa, look at the gorilla, go back, like just the ugliest moment of my life up to that point. And
What year was that?
1990, senior of high school, 89, 90. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, other people are like, yeah, dumbass, this is how it is in the real world. And I was like, well, it's never what I experienced in that TV. And then I went home and I mean, they cornered me and it was the worst. And I escaped and ran to class. And I mean, they were going to touch me, but it was verbal. And so I got home that day from school and told my mom my dad was out of town with the military. And we went into school the next day to talk to the principal. And he looked at me and my mom and said, it didn't happen. We didn't know that we were going to play out. So that changed me. My poor mother, who was, you know, I had no reason to make that up. And I made names and they did nothing. And so a couple weeks later, I remember I was walking around school. It did change me, and I had my eyes on the ground. I was no longer this kind of bubbly, like, ah! And this woman tapped me on the shoulder, a teacher, and she pulled me into her classroom. And her name was Agnes Pam. She was a German teacher. I didn't teach German. She knew who I was. I stood out, I guess. And she said, I want you to know that I heard what happened. And I'm so sorry. And she said, but look at me. She goes, you are doing more for Carmel High School than we can ever do for you just by being here. Don't let this affect you. I don't know if I ever saw her again, but I remember that verbatim. And just by staying there, just by being in the classroom and being someone that looked a little different from all of these kids in the rich white suburb north of Indianapolis. By the way, 90% of them were awesome. This is not a referendum on the town. That experience, though, and I'm told I was a liar by the principal, did change my life. But that was, I think, the beginning of realizing, okay, you can be different and still be okay and still have friends and still, you know, and then on to college and then through my career. And at times when mom and, you know, the career wasn't going well or the bosses were awful, no leadership, my parents would say, okay, you can't control them. You can control your reaction. When I was little, my two younger brothers, we had to memorize part of the cadet prayer that my dad had to recite 100,000 times while at West Point. And this prayer eventually made me fearless.
Same.
Helped me to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half truth when the whole can be one. Every part of that meant nothing as a kid saved me as an adult through all the stupid drama that ESPN and Disney, through my marriage, through every day. If you're at the grocery store and you're in a rush, you want to put the cart back, it's the right, and then you put the cart back, right? It's hard to write when you're in a rush. Sounds stupid. And to not ever be content with a half truth when the whole truth can be one. I mean, I had no choice at some point. If I'd been reciting it, then made my kids memorize it. Harder right. The harder right was what? Was to say, no, Disney, no, ESPN. You are hypocrites, and this is not fair. And I have other friends who feel the way I do, but would never say it because of maybe they're smarter than me for staying silent. But the harder right is what? Is to stand up, even though it cost me everything, literally and figuratively. The harder right is to have that conversation with a friend. The harder right is in your relationships to be the example for your kids. And if I'm telling my daughters and my son, you listen to this and don't stay comfortable because you think that's what everybody else wants. And then I'm not gonna, like, if I say that but don't live it, why would my kids ever then become fearless? It's the harder right. And it sucks sometimes. because we know what it is. Like in here, we all know what the right thing is, and it's just easier to ignore it and to not tell the whole truth.
I'm the wise like you on that. And I remember when Barack Obama became president. I think there's times, and even the I think the intent of a lot of people that were involved in BLM, not the crazies, not the socialists, not the Marxists, but the people who were actually marching, going, "There's a problem here." I thought that was so healthy, and like I cannot relate in 1990 somebody would have said that to me. And that might seem like distant past to some, but it wasn't that long ago. And I, somehow or another, I think it's just because it became politics. This is the kind of conversation people need to have, where you're actually hearing one another and sharing experiences that the other people I can't relate to, but we don't have these conversations very often. And have we passed the point of being able to, or are we coming, have we just taken a long circle back to where maybe we were getting to in the early 2000s? And maybe it's just my point of view, because I thought we were not perfect by any stretch. There is racism, there was, and there still is, and it's real.
And there always will be.
Always will be. Always will be. Opposition in all things. But I felt like we were getting better, and then all of a sudden, I felt like because it became so political, like everybody just built up walls, and we're not going there. Are we getting back to a point to where maybe we can have a real dialogue and actually grow from here?
I think so. I have hope, but I'm an eternal optimist and glass half full always. I do think so. I was so sad at how socially and culturally things I think got worse under Barack Obama. I think if we can go back
a myriad of reasons.
yeah, I think we can go back and look at when things changed and when he was, in power. I thought it would be, listen, to me, I did not vote for him. I voted for John McCain. And then I didn't vote for him in 2012 either. But in 2008, I was excited. I didn't vote for him. But number one, he's the commander in chief. That's how I was raised, military kid. My dad's West Point, retired colonel. Absolutely, I support you and supported Joe Biden for that reason too. If the president wins with, with making America great before that was a thing, then we all win. Of course, you support your commander in chief, and that's how I was raised with my father. But in general, I understood why so many people, certainly people of color, were so excited about Barack Obama.
Sure.
To me, it wasn't about race though, because I was thrilled to see. By the way,
I thought it was.
biracial.
I thought it was me. I remember saying something here after he won, because I wasn't a fan of him because I think he was a Marxist.
Totally.
He is, but I remember saying he has the opportunity to transcend race. You know what I mean? To be able to say none of that matters, and none of that was done.
None of that was done. To me, it was beautiful to see that
Yes.
on the stage in Chicago with his wife and
Yes.
daughters on that night. It was beautiful in so many ways. To me, he was just the wrong black president. That's all. Like, it's not about black, white, Asian, female, male. I don't care. I'm not voting for that reason, actually. Content of character versus color of skin and what you stand for. I guess it only matters when it's convenient for you? Like, I don't know. My grandmother at the time was in her late 80s, my dad's mom, so she was black, in the late 80s, maybe 90 years old. And I remember her crying. Like, I didn't like that he won, but I respected that for a 90-year-old black woman who was born in 1920, what she witnessed. So I get it.
100%.
He divided instead. And then it continued. And even at the very end of this last the campaign with Trump and Kamala, even what did he say to black men at the end? Scolding them for not voting for her because she's a sister, she's one of us. What? The divisiveness continued and it was intentional. Instead of saying, just because I'm black doesn't mean that we think alike. Wait a minute, then you're the racist if you think just that this dictates how we feel or should feel, what we should be doing. And I do think that we're getting back there in some ways. Having the conversation, remembering everybody has an opinion. And to me, our opinions are based on what? Our own personal experiences. So you can't tell me, and I can't tell you because you don't know me, and I don't know you in that way. Your wife, your first wife, didn't know that about your mother. I mean, my goodness. So to judge is so closed-minded, and there's such an obvious lack of tolerance and acceptance and true diversity of thought.
So, is there a place to where tolerance becomes a danger? For instance, I've never had a problem. You want a transgender, you want to do, I don't care. It's not my life, it's your life. I don't care. I think one of the best things about Americans is live your life, I'll live my life.
Care.
Yeah, I don't care. But because we are tolerant of people saying, no, that's a female. When, I'm sorry, it is a dude. Okay, you can't follow the science. You can't change that. So, you look at this and people try to make you feel bigoted when you're like, no, it's not about them. It's about my daughter and my friend's daughters. Should there be a transgender league? I mean, I don't even know
Like, what's the solution here?
What's the solution?
Yeah. First of all, as far as the tolerance, I say what you want, do what you want, great. Identify how you want. And there's rules. And there's rules in society based on that, I mean, I like it when people say, oh, okay, I'm a billionaire then. I don't believe that, but have you seen her checking account? Let's think for it, sadly. It's not going to happen. I think that in sports in particular, first of all, it's fascinating that it's only going one direction. Are there women trying to go play on the men's volleyball team in college? No, it's only going one way because we know that it's impossible. Like, it's just not. So, women own everything. And that includes, like right now, apparently in the NCAA, right? Okay, you can't compete on the same team, but you can still be in women's spaces and women's locker rooms. You still get the benefit, which means you can take scholarships that are supposed to go to women if you identify as a woman. So let's finish the deal, close the book on that, and make it all women all the time there. Because we know that there are basic scientific differences. And over here, it's open category. Men plus open. Do whatever you want. But if you were born as a male, you are a male. One of the problems right now with the NCAA is proof of male, female is your birth certificate. Well, I believe in 44 states, you can change your birth certificate. So that's a problem too. It's got to be shored up.
And to DNA test. They were talking about you're going to have people having to check people's, pants. No, we just do a DNA test.
It's so simple. It's quick. If we could do it that quickly, in a drive-up parking lot, shove it up to my brain to let me know if I have COVID or not. Like, we could do this, and it's actually more simple. So to me, that's the solution. And I will never accept people saying that we are anti-this, anti-trans, anti-gay. No, I'm not anti-anything. I'm actually pro-women. Number one, first and foremost, which is what you've been telling me, all the feminists out there who are sitting on their damn hands continuously, all the Democrats that voted against the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act recently. Shame on you. Women, these female politicians who continue to talk on both sides of their mouths. So that's the solution. Female here, male plus open. And no more women will have to get hurt or lose scholarships.
I didn't even look at my notes. I didn't, I had so many things to ask you and I didn't even get to them. You are truly one of my favorite people in the world. I just love you. I just think you are amazing. Thank you so much.
I don't know that you know what that means to me. Thank you, and for always allowing everyone to just be true to themselves. That's what people like you are why I have hope, even in this a long time, and you have evolved but not changed that part of you, and that is what makes America great. That's why we're going to be okay. I have to believe that.
Uber Eats is delivering more deals so you can watch more basketball. Right now, get buy one, get one 6-piece chicken McNuggets from McDonald's to get food to watch basketball. And then more food to watch more basketball. Order now, only with Uber Eats.
Oh, there. Sounds like that shirt. How did they find out I didn't know? Goodbye.
Whatever happened to Ken? Might have been the sword.
Mark is president of the United States. This comes with full weight of power and authority of my office. Trust you.
You okay? Can we get down to this step? I'm gonna need you to open this for me.
What is that?
This is nuclear football, sweetie. This kid's the blood type and heartbeat. President of the United States.
What the hell is this? This is a deal. Mark doesn't use this money, doesn't it? Even if I open my code to use it, they switch them out my feet.
Don't be worried about that.
Mark is letting me go back and out. Two. I'm not saying that. That's all you do. So he wants to do. Shoot me.
Send me your name.
What mission? And what are your nuclear weapons in
But there will be. At least in our life. We got it. I choose to keep it all together. History is judged.
And I'm not gonna Mark. Mark is nice. Mark.
How about now? What the hell's going on?
Oh, snap. We got thermal alarms going off in the second floor dining room, the west hall, and the local bedroom. Just running around the place now. Second floor, send command.
was that? Well, I've been waiting all day to kill you. German Mantle Club. Empire style. What the hell is happening before? Billy can't come to the phone right now, asshole. Where's my dog? He's right here with me in the Oval Office. Why don't you come down and get her? What are you gonna do? What are you saying? Why do you make all this shit personal? Why are you talking about personal? When you wanna go perhaps the world, you goddamn shit! What are you gonna do? What I should have done in the beginning, I would kill this prick. Hey! What? You lied to all of us. This was not the job. I got business to feed. You stay here. How do I get to the box? You take the stairs to the ground floor. You go to the right, you go to the west corner. Okay, there's an airstrike coming. You gotta get them out of here. Holy cow. Go! You heard the man? Tour's over. I didn't sign up for this nuclear bullshit, so I'm gonna go. And I'm gonna get the money myself. Hey! Hey! What? I think I put my hand to do this. For money! Prisoners. Oh, it's about time. I choose the picture. Yeah. Come here. Yeah.
Weapon system unlocked. Entered residential launch code.
Sir, we're at DEFCON 1. Nuclear football in the White House just went live. That's impossible. It's happening, and someone has just entered valid launch codes. Nuclear missiles just went live, sir. Sir, we have nuclear missiles spinning up on the Albuquerque. If our ally is launching a full-scale nuclear strike, they will respond. Russia will launch, China will launch. We'll have World War III in the next 10 minutes unless you level the weapons.
4 minutes to target, sir.
Sir, I need a final go, no-go for payload group. God forgive me. Go. Go! Listen, code. Copy that. Traffic to attack out the
Hale, Walker's trying to launch a nuclear attack. If he does, it'll start World War III. You have to stop him. Hale. Hale?
Life doesn't come with no explanation. Freedom is getting right your own. 10% off the cheap rate. Freedom's opening up tight, letting yourself go anywhere. Because freedom writes its own rules.
That's a lot of big and crispy for $6.99.
If you're visiting family, why don't you find out? 16 flights a day from the U.S. to wherever. 3, 2, 1. And President, here's the situation.
If you want to live, you'll follow my lead. My campaign advisors kept telling me to look into my military background. This is not what they meant.
20 rated R. This is you. You protect the presidency for the past 25 years.
Thank you for this food. Thank you for the people sharing. Can't hear you.
Down for one, you are clear. Delta 26, copy that. 2 minutes to target.
We gotta turn around. She's on there. Wait, Emily! What is with this family? Wait for me!
Confirmed. Tehran. Targeting complete. Armed for nuclear launch. You have 15 seconds to initiate. 15. 14.
There's a mystery to it. Listen, I need you to run as far as fast as you can possibly go. I gotta get the president. You gotta go home. You gotta go. Right now. Go.
Hundreds of other people seem to be running toward the White House. They don't know back to do what they're trying to defend. We have confirmation President Ringleton has ordered an airstrike on the White House, and I can hear the plane coming. I have to go start. Alright guys, let's clean it up. Delta 26, we're locked on target. Waiting for a recast. Let's go. Clear. Take it as it goes. Delta 26, we have friendlies all over
I told you once.
Captain, this is Delta 26. We have a young girl on the lawn. I think she's trying to wave off the airstrike. So requesting permission to abort.
Mr. President,
Sir, I need an answer. I'm not doing this, guys. Abort mission. Come on, abort.
He got shot in the water. I'm telling you, you know, I took the second book. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's it. Yep. Wait. Hold on. We'll go to our speaker. Did you check Walker's personal records? His computer, his email? Listen, Carol, I gotta check something out. See you outside. This one. Thank God. What's the question? Here to make it simple. I need to address the nation. General, get on with the joint chiefs. We can make plans to move our troops back into the Middle East to stabilize the region.
You want to move troops in?
We find out that we almost launched a nuclear attack. It's going to be chaos, and we have to contain it. Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Oh, yeah. What did you and Walker took this whole thing up? So how did you go? You gave Walker the launch codes and you made the cut. Did you prove this? Walker had to get you launch codes from somewhere, and you were the only person with those codes. And I found this page in Walker's pocket. I only know one other person who uses one of them. Wasn't doing anything. Two old guys use old technology, so you called the return number on that cat. I guess it would have been better if all the evidence would have been destroyed in the airstrike you ordered. They're goddamn traitors, right? You kidding? Shit. I hired you on a ticket. This is how you were paid. You know, tomorrow, people will help the maniac open the nuclear football. Who do you think they're going to be? You or me? Let's see. Now, You would be a nobody. But me, I'm the President of the United States.
No, you're not. You are like a politician. You did all of this just to keep your place in the defense industry happy. How far does it fall to the pockets?
This is ridiculous.
Take him into custody, General.
It's, Mr. President. No, I'm so this. I am still president.
Just consider this a coup d'etat. Get this trash off my lawn.
You're not fit for office. You son of a bitch. You're selling this country out to the Arabs. This isn't over. I got friends.
And I'll make sure all of your friends reach your prison.
Let's get him to the hospital. You okay? You look terrible. Thank you for everything you did.
Thank you for trusting me. Special Agent Kale, I'm not going anywhere without my protection.
Madam?
Thank you, sir. Hey, Em! You want to take a ride? Sure.
Of course. Go with your father.
She's an amazing girl.
Thank you, sir.
Sure you're all right? Good job, Steve.
Thank you, General.
If you ever want to try the tour of the White House, just let me know. I can hook it up like that. I mean, maybe in a few weeks when we've got the place back together.
It's good to know. Want to give me news?
Some calls have been coming in from all over the world to last hour. The president's behind, Russia is in there, and it's all in
It looks like
You want to see something really special?
yeah?
Carol,
Henry, the president wants to do it.
hold on tight.
I just want to let you know I'm sending it. I'm sending it to you from the store. Well, it's gonna be a long trip. I'm in Venice. I like the guy selling, you know that, but we never really connected. So I think I paid my fee over last.
Is Charlie there?
I'm on a cell phone. I'll call you tomorrow from the landline. I'll go back to Now to the hall. Hope I get fired up. Some more work from the garbage man. No show. It's pretty much the fresh out of food. I drank out of time. Ours was fun. I like it. Taking over the reins, all the work. Glad you enjoyed it, John. Remember, if we supposed to get from the station before position is 7, and we got 4 minutes to look at magic. You told me 10, you said I would have fun.